In the far reaches of the galaxy, there lay a hidden planet veiled in radiant mists and strange lights. No outsider had ever dared approach it. The rumors of fierce inhabitants and unspeakable magic were enough to keep most explorers at bay. But one lone traveler, undaunted by tales of danger, found himself en route to this strange world, lured by an unknown signal calling for help. His ship broke through the swirling mists, and he marveled at the landscape before him, a sprawling jungle with trees that glowed softly, their leaves breathing in a slow, tranquil rhythm. Guided by his ship's tracking system, he made his way down a winding path carved through the lush undergrowth, moving closer to the faint signal. His heart pounded with a mix of fear and excitement. Every branch and shadow seemed alive, the air filled with fragrances that seemed both familiar and alien. After hours of travel, he stumbled upon the source of the signal. There, trapped within a shimmering cage of translucent energy, was a figure unlike any he had ever seen. She stood tall and regal, her skin radiating with subtle, ever-shifting colors, and her eyes held a depth that seemed older than the stars. He recognized her from the tales he had heard, a princess from this planet's royal line, the only heir to her kingdom. Her captors had placed her in this prison to seize control over her people, hoping to break her spirit and force her allegiance. In her eyes, he saw a mix of sorrow and defiance, and his resolve hardened. He approached, studying the cage, and examined the intricate system of restraints with practiced ease. Though this technology was advanced and strange, his years of wandering across the stars had given him a knack for alien tech. Piece by piece, he began dismantling the prison structure, working through each layer of energy with steady hands and quick intuition. The last layer dissolved with a spark, and she stepped forward, free at last. Her gaze held his, a faint smile forming on her lips. She spoke, her voice as soft as it was strong, thanking him with words that carried an ancient beauty. Before he could fully comprehend the weight of what he had done, they heard a faint, rising hum. Her escape had triggered an alarm, and the rebels would soon arrive. Without hesitation, he took her hand, and they fled into the dense forest, moving quickly and quietly. As they ran, she spoke of the rebellion that had torn her kingdom apart, of those who had turned against her family, and the darkness that threatened to consume her world. He listened, caught between admiration and fury on her behalf. They traveled for miles, their path winding through tangled roots and hidden streams, evading patrols and staying one step ahead of the rebels. Exhausted, they finally found shelter in an ancient cave, a hidden sanctuary known only to her people. Inside, a faint glow illuminated ancient carvings on the walls, recounting stories of heroes and heroines from her kingdom's past. She touched the images reverently, explaining their meanings, and he listened, enthralled. As they spoke, she asked him of his life, of his travels among the stars. He told her stories of planets he had seen, of battles fought and friendships lost, and of the loneliness that came with wandering the galaxy alone. She listened, her expression softening as she recognized a shared longing, a desire to belong and to protect. It was a rare thing for her people to see such strength tempered with compassion, and in that moment, a connection formed between them, one forged by trust and understanding. Their moment of respite was interrupted by the sound of approaching footsteps. The rebels had tracked them, and now, they stood ready to attack. The traveler stepped in front of her, his resolve unbreakable. She watched as he fought with a fierce determination, defending her from wave after wave of attackers. Despite his injuries, he never wavered, his focus entirely on keeping her safe. Finally, as the last of their assailants fell, she stepped forward, raising her hands to unleash a power she had long kept hidden. A wave of energy burst forth from her, sending a shockwave that drove the remaining rebels back. She knelt beside him, tending to his wounds with gentle hands, and together, they stumbled their way back to the safety of her kingdom. Once back within the palace walls, her people received her with relief and joy. Her loyalists had feared the worst, and their reverence for the stranger who had saved their princess was apparent. The traveler found himself surrounded by gratitude, treated as an honored guest, but none of it meant more than the look she gave him, a look of quiet admiration and something more. Days passed, and the palace buzzed with talk of the hero from the stars. Yet, the traveler found his thoughts always returning to the princess. One night, as the sky shimmered with starlight, she invited him to a celebration held in his honor. They stood together in the grand hall, where the ceiling seemed to dissolve into the night sky, and the stars shone down on them as if bearing witness to something sacred. After the festivities, when the guests had departed, She looked up at him, her gaze steady. Her voice, filled with both strength and vulnerability, asked him if he would consider staying. Staying not just as an ally or a friend, but as her partner, her protector, her equal. The proposal took him by surprise, and he felt his heart race, caught between the thrill of adventure and the warmth of belonging. He took her hand, and in that moment, he understood that this was more than an invitation to share a life. It was a promise of a future built on shared courage, loyalty, and love. He accepted, his voice low but resolute, and together they stood under the stars, bound by a connection that had formed across worlds and against all odds. Their union brought peace to her kingdom, symbolizing a new era of unity and hope. The traveler learned the ways of her people, adapting to the life of a prince consort with a mixture of humility and pride. Together, they ruled, each decision a testament to the bond they had forged and the love that had brought them together. And as the years passed, their story spread throughout the galaxy, becoming legend, a tale of courage, sacrifice, and the power of love to transcend even the vast distances of the stars. Their story grew over time, whispered in spaceports and sung in the quiet of distant settlements. Travelers across the galaxy came to know of the daring human who saved an alien princess and won not only her heart but the respect of an entire kingdom. The legend of the two echoed far beyond the borders of her planet, inspiring those who sought unity and peace in their own fractured worlds. Yet, life together was no simple fairy tale. He had lived his entire life on the move, his days shaped by the freedom to explore, and now he found himself rooted to a single place, responsible for an entire people. There were moments when he missed the stars, the thrill of discovery, and he felt a longing he didn't quite know how to name. But each time he looked into her eyes, he was reminded why he stayed. Their bond had become a source of strength for both, and together, they faced the challenges of ruling an alien kingdom. Her people, though initially wary of an outsider, came to accept him over time, touched by his respect for their customs and his dedication to their well-being. He learned their ways, studying their language, their history, and the intricate details of their society. With her guidance, he found ways to bridge the gaps between his knowledge and theirs, bringing fresh ideas while honoring their traditions. She was his constant ally, her wisdom and poise smoothing over his rougher edges, helping him gain the trust of the council, who had once resisted her choice of a human consort. The kingdom flourished under their joint leadership, with peace settling over lands that had once been plagued by rebellion. Yet, every so often, he would take to the skies again. She understood his need to return to the stars, to reconnect with the life he had left behind. And each time, she sent him off with a quiet smile, trusting that he would return, for he had promised her that his place was by her side. On one journey, he came across an ancient artifact, a relic from a civilization that had vanished long before either of their people had ventured into space. Intrigued by the piece's strange carvings, he brought it back to her. Together, they studied it, discovering that it held knowledge of a distant galaxy, a new frontier. She encouraged him to seek it out, knowing that his heart would never be content unless he continued to explore. And so, they began to take turns, traveling together to learn from other civilizations, forging alliances that strengthened her kingdom and gave him the sense of adventure he had always craved. They visited worlds where water shimmered in shades unknown, met beings whose very thoughts seemed woven from song, and learned secrets of the universe that had been lost for eons. Over time, they grew older, their faces marked by both laughter and loss. Together, they saw the passing of friends, the ascension of a new generation, and the continuation of a peace they had helped build. Their children grew up with stories of their adventures, tales of courage and love that inspired them to become leaders in their own right. And as the years turned into decades, the two of them were still bound by the same promise, still partners in every sense of the word. One night, as they looked up at the stars from the balcony of their palace, he took her hand. Her fingers intertwined with his, and they stood in silence, each immersed in memories of battles won, worlds discovered, and a love that had grown deeper than either had ever imagined. With a shared glance, they knew that they had lived a life fuller than any story could capture. And so, when they finally left this world, their spirits were said to join the stars. Their legend remained, a beacon to all who sought connection across the vastness of space. Songs were sung, stories were told, and their tale of courage, sacrifice, and boundless love lived on in the hearts of dreamers across the galaxy, reminding all that sometimes, love was the greatest adventure of all.